Imagine standing in a high-tech control room, surrounded by wealthy board members, investors, and news cameras. You are watching a prototype autonomous vehicle barrel down a closed test track at 65 miles per hour. Now imagine knowing that in exactly 3 seconds, that car is going to slam its brakes so violently that it destroys the company's entire reputation. My name is Maya Vance. My boss thought he could steal my life's work, destroy my career, and throw me out like trash. He forgot one tiny detail. I didn't just write the code for their auto-braking system. I owned the logic gate that held it together. And when he pushed me off the cliff, he took the remote control with him. If you have ever had a toxic boss take credit for your hard work, or if you have ever dreamed of seeing an arrogant thief get humiliated on live television, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and grab your popcorn. Because today's story is a masterclass in why you never burn bridges with the engineer who built the bridge in the first place. Let me take you back to 2 years ago. I was 32 years old, living on cold pizza and energy drinks, working as the lead systems engineer for Veloce Dynamics. Veloce was a mid-tier automotive company desperate to compete with Tesla, Rivian, and the big players in the autonomous vehicle space. For 3 brutal years, I practically lived in a windowless cubicle on the 3rd floor of their Detroit headquarters. My skin was pale. My eyes were perpetually bloodshot. My back burned from sitting in cheap office chairs for 14 hours a day. Why did I do it? As I believed in the mission. Automotive emergency braking systems are notoriously difficult to program. The biggest problem isn't making a car stop when it sees an obstacle. The real nightmare is stopping the car from triggering phantom braking. Nobody wants their car to slam on the brakes on a crowded highway just because the sensor misidentified a plastic bag or a reflection off the pavement. I solved it. I spent thousands of hours developing a proprietary predictive neural algorithm called Aegis 7. Aegis 7 could differentiate between a real hazard, like a pedestrian running across the road, and false shadows in under 3 milliseconds. It was revolutionary. It was absolute perfection. And more importantly, it was mine. Or at least, thought it was. Enter Julian Sterling. Julian was Veloce's newly appointed vice president of autonomous systems. He was 38 years old, wore $3,000 tailored suits, had blindingly white veneers, and smelled like expensive cologne and unearned arrogance. Julian was the kind of executive who didn't know the difference between Python code and an actual snake. But he excelled at one specific skill: taking credit for other people's blood, sweat, and tears. Every morning, Julian would walk through the engineering department, holding a fresh cup of artisanal espresso, making promises he had no idea how to keep. He would pat developers on the shoulder, ask vague questions about progress, and then rush off to board meetings to present our technical breakthroughs as if he had coded them himself. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when the disaster began. I had spent 48 straight hours perfecting the Aegis 7 core logic. I scheduled a private meeting with Julian to present the finalized algorithm so we could prepare the dynamic road tests for our flagship electric SUV, the Veloce Apex. I walked into Julian's glass-walled corner office. Sunlight was pouring in, casting long shadows across his mahogany desk. He didn't even look up from his phone when I sat down. I told him, "Julian, it's ready. Aegis 7 passed all simulation models with a 99.98% accuracy rate. We are ready to deploy to the live test fleet." Julian slowly put his phone face down. He leaned back in his leather chair, laced his fingers together, and looked at me with a smirk that instantly made my stomach churn. He said, "Good job, Maya. Drop the source code and documentation into the shared executive drive. I'll take it from here." I paused, feeling a heavy knot tighten in my throat. I said, "Shared executive drive? Julian, I'm the primary architect. I need to lead the integration team during the track test." Julian let out a light, condescending chuckle. He stood up, walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked out over the city. He turned back to me with a look of fake sympathy and said, "Maya, let's be realistic. You're a back-end coder. A brilliant operational grunt, sure. But this project is going before the board of directors next week. It's going to tech journalists, high-profile investors, and state governors. We need leadership presenting this. Not someone who looks like they haven't slept since the Obama administration." My hands clenched into tight fists. My nails dug into my palms so hard it left white marks. I said, "Julian, this is my logic structure. My name needs to be on the patent application as the primary inventor. Julian smiled. It was a cold, venomous expression. He said, "Check your employment contract, Maya. Anything you write on company hardware belongs to Veloce Dynamics. And as head of the department, my name goes on the patent first. Yours might make the acknowledgments footnote, if you keep a good attitude." I left his office with my pulse hammering in my temples. The blatant disrespect, the sheer audacity of this suit-wearing parasite stealing 3 years of my life, was overwhelming. I walked back to my desk, sitting down in front of the monitors while my hands shook on the keyboard. My fellow team members could tell something was wrong, but I just stared at the glowing lines of code, quietly breathing through the rage. Because in the tech world, getting mad makes you weak. Getting smart makes you dangerous. 3 days later, the company held a massive corporate town hall in the main auditorium. I sat in the back row, swallowed up by the darkness, watching Julian stand on stage under a bright spotlight. Behind him was a massive LED screen displaying a sleek rendering of the Veloce Apex SUV. Julian's voice boomed through the speakers. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, today I am proud to announce that through my personal strategic oversight and vision, Veloce has solved the greatest hurdle in autonomous driving. I present to you the Sterling Aegis Protocol." The room burst into applause. Executives clapped. Investors cheered. He didn't just steal my work. He had renamed my baby after himself. I sat frozen in my seat, my heart beating slowly and heavily like a lead weight in my chest. I looked at Julian's smiling face on the big screen. The arrogance radiating off him was almost suffocating. He stood up there accepting praise from stakeholders, accepting handshakes from board members, all off the back of my sleepless nights. The next morning, I walked into the office early, determined to talk to HR and the legal team. I had brought digital backups of my early design files, commit logs showing timestamps from years prior, and notes that clearly proved the development history of the logic. But when I tried to swipe my keycard at the security turnstile, red light. I tried again, red light. Before I could even process what was happening, 2 heavy-set corporate security officers stepped up beside me. Behind them stood Julian, flanked by an HR representative holding a thick folder. The HR officer said, "Maya Vance, your employment with Veloce Dynamics has been terminated, effective immediately." I stood there paralyzed. I asked, "On what grounds?" Julian stepped forward, leaning in close so only I could hear. He whispered, "You were overheard yesterday making disgruntled comments about company intellectual property, Maya. You're a liability. We can't have unstable elements around a multi-million-dollar product launch." I whispered back, my voice trembling with rage. "You can't do this, Julian. I built that system." Julian whispered back with a razor-sharp smile. "And we own it. Security, please escort Miss Vance out of the building. Make sure she doesn't take anything from her desk." They didn't even let me grab my personal mug. They didn't let me collect my personal notebooks or say goodbye to my junior engineers. They tossed my basic desk belongings into a cheap cardboard box like garbage and escorted me out onto the street in front of my former coworkers. I stood on the sidewalk in the chilling autumn rain, holding a damp box, shivering. The humiliation was absolute. The powerlessness was overwhelming. They took my work. They took my reputation. They took my livelihood. I took a deep breath, wiped the cold rain from my face and smiled. Because Julian, in his grand corporate arrogance, was a manager, not a developer. He assumed that code was just a static stack of building blocks that you could cut and paste. He didn't understand how neural software actually lived and breathed. You see, 3 months prior to my firing, I had anticipated that Veloce's management might try to pull a fast one on the engineering team. Corporate tech is cutthroat and I wasn't stupid. When I programmed the core logic gate for Aegis 7, I integrated a custom validation loop. It wasn't malware and it wasn't a virus, so it was completely invisible to standard security scans. It was an active logic verification handshake. Every 48 hours, the algorithm's core decision module sent an encrypted, localized ping back to an isolated external server directory. That directory was hosted on my personal private hardware, simply to verify software authorization keys. It was a standard safety mechanism used during developmental testing to prevent unauthorized pre-release builds from running without developer oversight. If the system failed to connect to that private key after 72 hours, or if the key was manually toggled off, the algorithm didn't crash. Crashing would be too obvious. An error log would point right to a crash report. Instead, the logic gate fell back to its hard-coded safety override. And what was the hard-coded safety override? In the event of a total logic authorization failure, the system was programmed to treat any dynamic light variation or high-frequency optical input as a critical collision hazard. In plain English, without my daily encrypted authorization key, the moment the vehicle hit 60 miles per hour under direct sunlight or flashing optical signals, the computer would panic. It would think it was about to crash into a brick wall at full speed, and it would trigger 100% emergency braking force instantly. Julian had spent weeks hyping up the upcoming National Autonomous Driving Expo. It was a live, televised demonstration where Veloce Dynamics would showcase the Apex SUV live on a track in front of international investors, regulatory heads, and major news outlets. Julian thought he was about to become a legendary tech CEO, walking off into the sunset with a massive golden parachute. I spent the next 3 weeks in my apartment watching the news coverage, sipping tea, and waiting for the exact right moment. I watched televised interviews where Julian talked about his genius vision. I saw news articles profiling him as the next big innovator in automotive safety. I let him build his tower as high as it could possibly go. The day of the expo arrived. I logged into the high-definition livestream from my laptop at home. The camera cut to a massive, beautifully lit test track in southern Michigan. Thousands of spectators sat in the grandstands, holding banners and waiting for the show. On stage stood Julian, looking pristine in a tailored blue suit, holding a microphone like he was Steve Jobs. Julian's voice echoed across the public address system. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, today you will witness history. The Veloce Apex, powered by the Sterling Aegis protocol, will perform a fully automated 65-mile-per-hour high-speed approach toward a static barrier, demonstrating our system's unmatched safety and instantaneous braking control." In the VIP section sat the CEO of Veloce Dynamics, alongside potential buyers who were preparing to sign a $300 million investment contract right after the demo. The camera showed the sleek silver Veloce Apex idling at the start of the straightaway. Inside sat 2 high-profile auto journalists to witness the seamless, smooth ride. Julian raised his hand dramatically into the air and shouted, "Initiate test." The silver SUV accelerated down the track. 10 miles per hour, 20 miles per hour, 30 miles per hour, 40 miles per hour, 50 miles per hour, 65 miles per hour. It was roaring down the asphalt toward the artificial barrier set up a quarter-mile down the track. Back in my apartment, I opened my terminal command prompt. The screen glowed soft green in the dim room. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Status: active handshake. Action: terminate authorization key. I hit enter. 300 miles away on the test track, the precise moment the Apex crossed the 200-foot mark before the barrier, right under the bright television floodlights, the vehicle's internal logic module executed the authorization ping. Error 404. Key not found. Fallback mode. Emergency override triggered. A deafening screech rang out through the livestream speakers. The Apex didn't gracefully pull up to a smooth stop near the barrier. The moment the fallback code triggered, the computer locked up all 4 brakes instantaneously while traveling at over 60 miles per hour. The tires shrieked, sending thick clouds of acrid white smoke billowing into the air. The vehicle fishtailed wildly, leaving massive black rubber skid marks across the pavement. The sudden, violent deceleration caused the front bumper to dive hard into the asphalt. It ripped off the carbon fiber front valance with a sickening crunch, before the car spun 180 degrees and came to a dead halt, still 100 yards away from the actual target. Total silence fell over the entire stadium. The news commentators were completely speechless on live television. The spectators in the grandstands gasped in shock. The camera zoomed in on the vehicle resting in a cloud of burning rubber smoke. The 2 journalists stumbled out of the passenger doors, looking pale, terrified, and visibly nauseous from the brutal force of the seatbelts locking up. The camera then whipped back to Julian on stage. His face was absolutely priceless. The color had completely drained from his cheeks, leaving him ghostly white. His mouth was hanging wide open. His eyes were wide with sheer, unadulterated terror. The CEO of Veloce Dynamics slammed his clipboard down on the desk, stood up with a face beet red with anger, and marched toward the back rooms with the lead investors right behind him. Julian stuttered into the microphone, his voice cracking as feedback squealed through the speakers. He said, "A technical glitch. Just a minor sensor calibration error. We will reboot the system." He scrambled off the stage, sweating profusely, furiously pulling out his phone. My phone rang 2 minutes later. It was an unknown number from Detroit. I picked up, taking a slow, calm sip of my coffee. I said, "Oh." Julian's voice was hyperventilating, almost hysterical on the line. He screamed, Maya, what the hell just happened to the system? We ran the code you uploaded and the entire fleet's breaking logic just locked up during the live broadcast. The investors are threatening to pull the funding. The CEO is calling legal." I put on my most innocent, sympathetic tone and said, "Gosh, Julian, that sounds terrible. But I'm sure a brilliant visionary leader like you can fix a tiny calibration error, right? After all, it's the Sterling Aegis protocol." Julian pleaded, his voice breaking into a genuine whimper. "Maya, listen to me. I'll give you whatever you want. I'll make you lead senior vice president. I'll give you double your old salary. Just fix the code. The board is going to fire me in 20 minutes if I can't explain this." I listened to the sheer desperation in his breath. This was the same man who had tossed my career into a cardboard box in the freezing rain. This was the same man who claimed my work belonged to him simply because he wore an expensive suit. I said quietly, "Check your employment contract, Julian. Fixing your code isn't in my job description anymore." And I hung up the phone. Within 48 hours, Veloce Dynamics stock dropped by 35%. The board launched an emergency internal audit to figure out how a major failure occurred on live television. The audit revealed that Julian had forcibly removed the primary software architect and pushed unverified, unauthorized code changes to the live fleet just to meet his own promotional timeline. It was uncovered that he had bypassed standard safety review protocols just to parade the technology in front of investors. Julian was utterly disgraced, stripped of his position, and blacklisted from the entire automotive industry. He couldn't even get an entry-level consulting job anywhere in Silicon Valley or Detroit. As for me, 3 months later, I was hired by a rival automated vehicle firm as their chief technology officer, at double Julian's old salary. My new team respects my experience, listens to my technical guidance, and supports my development goals. And yes, my name is clearly listed as primary inventor on every single patent we file. Moral of the story: never steal the engine from the mechanic who built it. If this story satisfied your inner justice seeker, hit that like button, drop a comment letting me know what you would have done in my shoes, and don't forget to subscribe for more crazy corporate revenge stories. Until next time, stay safe and keep building.